Y'all did an amazing job with breakfast. That was so good. All right, so our speaker this week is Carolyn Sears. She came to me several months ago now and said, do you guys have any talks this semester on blended families? And I said, no, but that's a great idea. Do you want to come and share? And she was gracious enough to say yes. So Carolyn has been married to her husband, Brian, for 11 years. They've been a part of Grace House for 10 years. Carolyn grew up a pastor's kid. She was a PK, so all the PKs out there. Her dad is actually an Assemblies of God minister in Ohio. So faith has been a steady foundation in her life. She spent 20 years working in educational testing and has poured so much into her community as a room mom, PTA president, fundraiser, and even a Little League coach. So she's done all the things. She's also living out what she'll be sharing today. So her family is beautifully blended. She has 5 sons, 1 daughter, and 11 grandchildren. She's walked through so many seasons of motherhood, and I am really excited to hear her wisdom and encouragement on blended families. So let's give her a warm Mom's Morning Out welcome. Come on up, Carolyn.
Thank you. I don't know who wrote that, but it sounds way better than me, what she said. As many of you know, we've been here for a while, 10 years. You probably know my husband maybe more than myself because he's the host out in the front lobby, and he likes to talk. So I'm sure that you've probably seen him or talked to him. I remember way back in 1993, maybe before all of you were born, I was sitting in a movie theater watching a movie, Mrs. Doubtfire. And I'm watching it, and the tears are rolling down your face, and my sons are with me. They're like 4 and 8. And I thought, how horrible that would be. Awful. I could never do that. Have, a divorced family and send my children off to someone else that I don't know or have someone else in their life. And back then, I was a little self-righteous, so I thought that would never happen to me, but it did. And it was not as hard as I thought it would be, but it wasn't easy. My ex-husband and I got along. We decided that we would parent the children together. We would make the decisions together. That lasted for a little bit. And then life happens, and your kids get older, and things happen. But we found that no matter what we did, we were going to have a united front. And I think in blended families, that is one of the most important things. When we talk about blended families, we automatically think about step families. And we automatically think about people who have remarried or had spouses that remarried. And this doesn't apply to you. But if you think about it, blended families mean a lot more. If you have a daughter-in-law, if you have a son-in-law, if you have parents that have step-parents, or they're all blended families. So you have all these different dynamics in your family. And I will say, if you have boys and you have daughter-in-laws, that's a whole new thing. So if you are one of those daughter-in-laws, have grace with the mothers. But most of the time, we think of blended families as step families, and that is what we normally deal with. So I want to read a few statistics. Something funny, Tia asked me, would you like some slides? Is there anything you'd like me to do for slides? And I'm like, I don't even know how to do that, so let's just go old school. So 4 in 10 marriages include at least one remarried partner. 42% of American adults have at least one step relative. 64% of divorced women go on to remarry. 68% of divorced men remarry at some point. I don't know how that statistic works out, but apparently men need us more than we need them. I don't know. But with those statistics, everybody in this room is going to be touched by some kind of blended family. And that might look different in the church than it does, outside of the church. But it affects us in a lot of the same ways. So blended families can be very complicated. It doesn't have to be as hard as it sounds. As I was looking up statistics and talking points, and everything I looked at said, oh, blended families come out of tragedy, and blended families are, built from brokenness and all of these things. And that might be true, and that's probably true for a lot of people. But we can move past that, and it can be beautifully blended. We don't have to have everything be so daunting in our lives. We have enough of that everywhere with our children. I think there's so much information out there now that if you are in a blended family, that you can find something that relates to you. There are a lot of faith-based podcasts, and in your information, I put down at the bottom some of those. Those are very good because every one of them I listened to, I thought, wow, that happened to me. Or, wow, I wish I would have known that because I could have done things differently. But there's just so much information out there that it's a good time, I think, a good time to be in any problems that you have. I know we give social media a lot of grief, and rightfully so most of the time. But there's just so much information out there, so don't be afraid to seek some of that out. Like we said, blended families can be beautiful, they can be complicated. They don't come with manuals. Everything is different. Instead of just two people making decisions, sometimes you have 4 or even 6 people making decisions about your life and your kids and their kids and everyone else. Brian has 2 boys and a girl. I have 3 boys, so together we have 6. When we got together, the kids were adults, and we thought, wow, that's going to be so much easier. I don't know if it was or not. Adult children have their own personalities. They have their own decisions. They can run their own lives, and sometimes that doesn't include your ideas. But we were fortunate, and eventually we just all blended together. Every one of the kids has a different personality. If you put them all in a room, you would never pick out any of them as being brothers and sisters. It's very bizarre. We don't know how it happened, but it did. But it was difficult for them as adult children. Brian and I did not find this out until later. It probably took 2 or 3 years for them to come out and say things to us, like, well, it was kind of weird when we were at Christmas and we had to be at Mom's house at, 2 o'clock, and you guys are still opening presents and we need to leave and the kids are crying. Things like that in blended families happen. That happens if you have in-laws too, I know. But Brian and I were in a new relationship, and we were so happy, and we're just so glad to have found each other. And so we're not really paying attention sometimes to what our kids' needs were or what our kids' feelings were. Not that we were doing anything intentional. We were, you're just in that new bliss. And when you're in that, sometimes you don't really think about other things that are going on around you. You want everybody to be happy, just as happy as you are. And no matter how much the kids like me or the kids like Brian, there are still those little situations where not everybody's on the same happiness train. So we want to be aware of that as the parents, that our relationship, as good as it could be, we need to pay attention to what the kids' feelings are around. Because we did have adult children, it was a little bit easier. There were no visitation weeks, no every other weekend. They were making their own decisions. But I have a lot of friends who had gotten divorced and remarried prior. And one of the biggest problems I saw, or things that divided people, were visitation with kids and time with the other family and the jealousy that that brings. If you are in a blended family and you've got children that go to a parent's house and go to the other house, it's a little difficult because you're trusting that other person to parent your kids the way that you would parent them, or who are they going to be around? Who are they going to see? Whose house are they going to be at? And all those are very, very legitimate concerns. If I think about that, if it was my grandchildren, how would I handle that? And I think that, that's no matter if you're a Christian person or not, you can be worried about those things because not everybody has a family like yours or functions as one like you do. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things, if you're a younger family, that you might deal with. So if you can come to some conclusion, then maybe that's best, and stick to it. It's really hard, but I'm sure it would help. One of the things that I kept coming across too as I was looking for things to talk about, the word grace kept popping up, because blended families need a lot of grace. You're never going to be the perfect family. You're not going to be the perfect stepmom. You're not going to be the perfect mother. Your own children can get very jealous of the other children or the other family. When your children start to get jealous, and they can even get jealous of the new spouse, and that's very normal. In our case, when that happened, we would just take one of the kids and do something who was ever struggling. We would make sure that the parent of that child went and spent quality time with them, just reconnecting with them, letting know they're important, they're special, they are just as special as the other children in the family, and if they're struggling with something, we give them a little bit more attention. We try to do that with the parent of that child, the biological parent. There's a connection there. Even though Brian is amazing with my sons and they love him, I'm still their mom, and I'm still that connection for them. And we try to really, really focus on that. And I think it helps them as adults or children if they're younger. You want to give yourself grace. You're not going to do everything right, and you're not going to say everything right. And even if you think it's right and someone else perceives it that it's not, you know, that can be a problem too. But when you are thinking about yourselves and parenting your blended family, I think that if you keep your focus on your values and your morals and don't treat the other family any different than you would treat your own, and stick to that, and they respect you for that. They may not agree with it, but they will respect you for it. You'll make some mistakes, you always do, but give grace. And if you are the child, if you're the adult child out there and you have a stepmother or stepfather, in-laws, then make sure that you give them some grace as well, because it's not easy for them, it's not easy for you, but they still have the same struggles. Celebrate small wins. If you are a blended family and you're doing really well, you get a big people together, you have a holiday, whatever you have, and it goes wonderful and it goes great, celebrate that as a big win. Take it. You'll get plenty of those in life. They happen more often than they don't. Like I said, when I was looking at things, I saw a lot of negatives. But when 64% of people are involved in a blended family, then there are going to be a lot of differences. There are going to be a lot of things that are different, but not everything's negative. Some things turn out very beautifully, and the family will adjust. If you are grounded in God's word, if you are grounded in your beliefs and your faith, they will adjust to you, just like your other children do, just like your other family members do. And I think that's really important, just to be consistent. You're not alone out there, like we were talking earlier. You do have a lot of sources to go to. And I don't want to stand up here and make everybody think that, well, she has no problem, she's had no problem. No, we've been through 10 years of a lot of adjustments. And it takes, we were told it takes 5 to 7 years sometimes for kids to totally trust the other parent or to totally trust the new family. If you think about it and you have a 5-year-old, we're talking to the age of 12, it's going to take that adjustment. So if you're in a family and you're in a blended family and you're thinking, well, that's not me, that can't be, just know that those kids take that long sometimes to fully adjust. And it's okay. They've got a lot of changes to deal with. I think that, and I always keep saying I think because this is my opinion, everybody else has their own opinion, and that's fine. But one of the biggest things that we struggled with was that we had to think about what each child thought they had children. So the new grandkids, what are they going to think if, oh my gosh, Dad's coming over with another person, with another woman? It's not Nana, it's not, Papa, it's not, what is going on here? And what we found out is that, yeah, they do struggle sometimes. They don't know what to do, but kids are resilient. And if you act like the grandparent, or if you act like the aunt or the uncle, and you treat them as if they were your child, then the grandkids have no problem. The parents had the problem for us. We were so shocked. And we would have family get-togethers with everyone together, and the other side of the family, their other parents would be there with their husbands or significant other. Brian and I would be there, and we'd play with the children. Everybody's having a great time. And then we would find out afterwards that, well, Mom, Dad, you guys can't be in the same room because it confuses the children. Well, we were like, who's confused? They're little kids. They're talking to us. We're going. It wasn't them that was confused. It was the kids, our kids, that were confused, the son. And we were very shocked at that. It was like, why would it bother you after all these years that you are in the same room with your mother and father with their spouses? And we couldn't understand that. But then we started talking to our son, asking questions. What bothers you about it? Well, it confuses the kids. And we're like, okay, well, maybe you should talk to the kids. Let's see if they're confused. And so we're asking little questions about the kids weren't confused. It was our son had the problem that it was uncomfortable for him. And this came out of nowhere. We had been together many times. So we had to learn how to be sensitive to his feelings and how that was going to look in the future. No one else could understand it. He was the only one that had a problem with it. And me personally, I felt bad because I thought, did I cause something? Did I do something to make this child feel uncomfortable about having me in the same room with his mom? But it was just something he was going through. We don't know why, but it happens, and you're going to face things like that. And you're going to be so blown away when it happens. You're like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? But it goes back to, issues that they had in the beginning, maybe. Maybe they have children of their own now and they're having different thoughts. But those are just things that you can deal with in blended families. no matter what age they are. This happened for a 31-year-old, so you just don't, you never know. So we've been talking about blended families. Does anybody have a situation or have any questions that they want to talk about or ask? I answered every question in here. Are you serious? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yes, that's absolutely true. And sometimes in blended families, we forget too that that other step parent sometimes changes in the middle of your whole family, and now you've got a stepmother that you dearly loved, and now one that you don't really care for. And those dynamics carry a whole new set of situations. It happens, and then, you know, of course, the new wife doesn't want the old wife to be around. And then you've got a step parent that's out here that you grew up with for 10, 12 years, and then all of a sudden, what do you do with that? So those are all the different things that I think small groups really make a difference. This is a big topic. And if any of you out there want to ever start a small group with a topic like this, don't ever say anything to David Hall that you don't want to do. I will tell you that right now. Or you'll be up here, or you'll have a small group about a topic that you are like, I'm not sure about. So, but yeah, a small group on this topic would be really good because there's so many different situations and concerns. And anytime you can have a peer group like this or a peer group of anyone and get answers from them, it can be life-changing. It really can. So, this
Any
is all
other
I have to
questions?
say.
I see Amanda.
So, kind of what you just described, like with my in-laws, I had a stepmother-in-law, and my father-in-law just got remarried again.
Okay.
So it's like I love my stepmother-in-law that I had originally loved and
Absolutely.
have been part of my family, and this new woman. Just in general, we are kind of struggling with our daughter's 2. So like she doesn't really, like you said, she doesn't really know what's going on.
Right.
But what do we tell her, or how do we explain it to her if she starts like, oh wait, how does this work? Like,
Right. Who are you and why
Who
do
are
I
you?
call
How-
this? And,
yeah,
and
how
what
are you
do I call
related?
the new person?
right. Well, they all have their own names. So there's
Yeah.
Grandma, Mimi, Gigi.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but we're struggling with, okay, on my side, we don't have like divorce. So I don't want to, I don't know, how to explain it to her in like a godly way, and like that there's forgiveness and grace and,
I don't think you have to explain that to a 2-year-old.
Right.
And honestly, maybe not even older. I think we sometimes, and I could be wrong, this is my opinion, I think sometimes we put too much on our kids to give them too much information because it's all out there. It's all out there for them. But I think if we go with love, and you love this person, she's going to love this person. She's going to love the new person for who they are, what they are. Doesn't matter what their name is, If you just introduce them as what she is, what is she now? What do they call her?
Mimi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mimi is Mimi. And when she grows up, Mimi will be Mimi. And then kids start to figure out, I get this with my own grandkids, kids start to figure out, well, wait a minute, I saw a picture of Papa and Nana. You weren't there, you know? And so then I just explained to them, that's when they were a family, now we're a family, now we're all a family. And each kid, I think, is different with that. But if you just keep her consistent, if she's going to be in your life and she's going to be consistent, I think the kids figure it out.
And I was going to say what we were talking about earlier, Carolyn, too. So obviously, like I said, I'm from a blended family. I also have a child that's adopted. And so we always remind our kids that blood is not what makes a family. Love is what makes a family. Right. And so just because this person is not related to us by blood doesn't mean that we love them any less, and doesn't really change that relationship. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to share a personal story about that because I'm from a blended family. But it's like my parents were always married, but my dad had 2 kids from his first marriage, and we always knew their mom as Aunt Sandy. Until one day we were like, wait a second, Aunt Sandy is our sister's mom. How does this work? And so then when we were ready and we started asking the questions, then they explained it to us. And so now I just had that similar experience like with my boys. My boys have always known my sister's mom as Aunt Sandy. And then one day they were like, wait a second, how does this work? So I do think like as she gets older, she'll start to make connections and ask questions, and then you'll know it's the time to maybe explain further. So
Yeah.
I love that.
This is something just kind of that goes with that. One thing that I've learned is a big deal. So like not saying you don't like answer questions and things like that, but I think sometimes we feel the need to just make things like we need things and really like I try to do that with my son and I just see him gloss over and I'm like, okay, just the shortest Cliff Notes version. He's like, okay. And he just goes. And so sometimes I think that's helpful. And like I grew up, my brothers and my sister are half siblings. So like my dad had 2 boys, my mom had a daughter, and they had me. I was like, I don't understand like all these extra people. Like I was so confused, but my parents are just like, they're your sister. Those are your brothers. That's it. And I was fine with that. And as I got older, I asked the questions and figured it out. You're doing great, though, that you care.
Yes.
This is just a statement, but how you said that if like a kid's having difficulty, the biological parent should spend time with them. I have a stepmom. I also think it's very important that the step-parent spends quality time with their stepchildren.
I absolutely agree with that too. I have a stepdaughter, blended daughter. I call her my daughter. Us old people, we have really problem with these labels. And so we don't know whether to say, we grew up with step families, blended family, stepdaughter, daughter, half daughter. So we have trouble, at least I do, with all these things. So I just started saying my daughter, because to me that's what she is. But Michelle comes to me for things that she can't go to her mom for. And so I play an important role in her life. I've never tried to be her mother because she was 20 years old, but I've ended up being a very important part of her life and of the kids' lives too. And I have them quite a bit, quite often, and she leans on me for different things than she does for her mom. So you're exactly right. It's very important that we spend time with each individual stepchild because they will tell you things that you never thought you would hear from them, and vice versa. But they can't really say it to their parents, but they can say it to you. And if we're there, we would rather be there for them than have to go somewhere else, and that's very important.
I come from a blended family. My husband does not. And we have had to figure out how to navigate family gatherings and holidays. What would you recommend?
So you have a blended family, so you would have to, you come from a blended family.
I come from a blended family.
So when you go to your holidays, do you have to go to 2 different ones? Mm-hmm. We just, this year, after 10 years, we just figured this out, kind of. We haven't tried it yet, but we think we figured it out. So everybody gets so stressed around the holidays and everybody has to be here. And even if you don't come from a blended family, I have a large family and my parents are still alive and my grandparent just passed away 2 years ago. So we've been hopping around everywhere. That's only on my side. I decided that this year, in between the hectic Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, it helps when you have sons too, because they are always dragged off with their girlfriends or with their wives. So I had to solve that problem. But I decided that the second week of December, which is around the 12th, 14th, or whatever, I have the holiday Christmas party. It's half Thanksgiving, it's half, but every year we're just going to have a holiday party during that time. And then they're still excited because I get to have them before Christmas, so they're all excited, And they're not tired and they're not wore out. And with all the 12 grandkids, that's really important. But that's just how we've decided we're going to try and figure that out. Not everything has to be on Christmas or on, And for parents, I know it's really important, but sometimes we have to swallow real hard and just say, you know what, this will be our new holiday.
Yeah.
So, and just make it fun. We're just going to make it games and presents and gift card exchange and things like that. That might work. I don't know. Well, I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted.
I had a very endearing thing that happened to me as a not biological grandmother to some of my grandkids. I don't think of it that way at all. They are mine.
Right.
So my oldest is 20. And when he was only probably 4 years old, he had so many grandmas and grandpas. And even though he was with me a lot, he would come to church and somebody would say, oh, who are you with? And he would go, he didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
What do I call this one? Kind of thing. And it really bothered me because I was like, this looks awful. So finally, one day in the car, we're going down the road, just me and him, and he's in the back seat. And I said, look, bud, you can call me anything you want. Don't worry about it. What do you want to call me? Just what, And he sat there for a few minutes. He goes, I know. And I said, what? He said, I want to call you me love because I love you.
Aww.
And he is 20 years old, and he is the one that
Still
calls me
calls
me
you.
love even to this day. So it's
They-
very, very special relationships.
That's really
you can
special.
have.
And they figure it out somehow. Sometimes we get a little more upset than they do, but they do. They figure it out, and it's great. And I think you wanted to say something, so I'll just run over there for her. Can you say it really loud? Okay. Yes.
So when she's saying she wants to seek advice from you or talk to you about stuff, as having adult stepkids, where do you feel the line is of I need to be that for her, but also respecting her mom? So just any practical advice on that?
Yes, and that does happen. I think that it's just been the understanding from the beginning that I'll give you my opinion, and your mom's probably going to have a different one. But just do what you think is best. Do what you feel like, whatever you feel like you need. But I'll never go against your mom. And never say anything bad about the other spouse, about the other person. It will come back to you in ways that you have no idea, even 10 years down the road. But it doesn't help anywhere. Even if it's true, even if it is, I've always just said, everybody does the best they can where they're at. So you don't have to agree with it because a lot of times it's stuff you would never agree with. But you just, in a step-parent role, can never just go against the other spouse or the ex-spouse. But that's kind of how we handle it, and it's tricky sometimes because you want to say things and you just and I talk a lot, and sometimes if I talk long enough, I'll say something stupid. So I try to remember to just be quiet, listen to God, be quiet, and let things happen. And that's usually, when I stop talking is usually when it's the best. Yes.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to have a little bit of encouragement that we don't come from a blended family in our immediate family, but we have step grandparents, and then my husband has step-great-grandparents. I'm sorry. We have step-great-grandparents, and my husband has step-great-grandparents. And the difference between the two, our step-grandmother is very choosy on who she brings into her fold and who she doesn't, and it's hers versus theirs. My husband's step-great-grandmother, so this is generational, she was in his life when he was 11. So what I have witnessed in the 18, 19 years that I've been with him is that she brings all of her blended family into the fold. And my kids, that's their great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. My husband calls her grandma. And what I want to say to that is and I have friends who are going through divorce and blended families and spouses, and what I want to say to that is when you make it a priority, I see the difference. And when you make it a priority, we're talking 4 generations down now, mm-hmm. that it's like, that it's important. And yes. It's not just affecting your immediate children, it's affecting your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and how they're gonna see the family as a whole. Right. So it's really important, like long-term.
Yeah, it does. It has far-reaching effects that we probably haven't even seen yet. But it's the new, I hate that word, the new normal, but it's the new normal. In all of our, situations, you're going to run into it at some time. Like I said, if you even have children, you're going to have a blended family if they ever marry. So it doesn't have to be, from any different situation. I have a friend who remarried. They both had 3 children, and they tried to buy a house and blend this family together, and they were mostly teenagers, like 12 to 20. It wasn't working. So they sold the house, and they bought 2 houses next to each other in a cul-de-sac. And the mom lived over here with her children, and the dad lived over here with his children, and they would kind of go back and forth. And I thought, at the point, I said, wow, that seems like the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. I would never do that. Why, what were you thinking? But those children grew up very well adjusted. I don't know what it would have been if they would have not done that. Maybe these kids would have, I don't know. But I was so shocked when it worked. I was like, but everybody has to find their own place. And what works for you may not work for somebody else. So let's make sure that we're not judgmental. We give people grace because not everything works for everybody. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing, is to just give grace. And I stand up here saying that as someone who in my younger days, growing up in church and always, I was probably the most judgmental, person, not intentionally. But just because I thought this is the way things are, I was told this is the way things are, and I'm very direct, and that's the way it should be. And then life happens, and you find out that it's never that way. Everything is just different, convoluted, and you just find your way to fix your problems, and you don't worry what other people think. And it takes a long time to realize that, too. Does anybody else have comments? You guys have some really good thoughts and comments. Mm-hmm. It's such a large subject. One thing I do want to address is something as I was doing this, my son said to me, and he's 28, and he said, I asked my kids, what did you have? What things were good? What things were bad? And they're telling me this, and I'm thinking, okay, that's enough right there. That's enough. I get it, But no, he said to me, do you remember when it was my graduation? He was 18, and Brian and I had just gotten married, I think. And he said that one of the other kids got very upset because they saw on social media, I posted the graduation pictures, and there's me and Brian and Austin in the middle, and all of my family. And one of Brian's children got very upset because this was new to them. They're seeing their dad with another family, and now he's the dad of this family. And these aren't little kids. they're all adults. And it really crushed them. I was so hurt. I didn't think anything of it. I'm happy. This is a great family. We've blended this whole family. But they saw that, and then their friends saw it, and then their friends saw it, and then their friends saw it. And it just blew up when it was just a really happy family picture to me. So when you're posting things and you're a blended family and you're posting things online, if you have little kids, you need to make that decision ahead of time. Can I do this? Should I do this? You know, talk to the other side. And if you can't have that conversation, if the other mother is not willing to stick to your rules, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But I think if you address it with them in the beginning, then maybe you can come to some conclusion. But just be very mindful when you're posting family vacations and all of these other things, what that child who didn't get a go might see. You know, is it really that important that we put everything out there? Obviously, you can tell I have a pet peeve with that, but it just seems like you have to think of everything. So just be mindful of social media with blended families because people get hurt.
I think that's really good advice. Anyone? One last question, maybe? I was going to make just a quick comment. So my parents got divorced when I was 15, and things were super not good for a little while. Like they wouldn't be in the same room together. It was a mess. And I remember just praying and praying and praying, God, just heal this brokenness, because like it's not even so much about the divorce anymore, but I just want my parents to be able to be in the same room together for like my graduation and stuff like that. And God has brought so much healing, and we go on family vacations now together, like with all the step parents, and we all stay in the same house. And so my word of encouragement is, if you're in the middle of it and it seems like things are never going to change and everyone's sitting in their brokenness, that there is hope, and there that you can be encouraged because God is still working. He still is healing, and something really beautiful can come from all of that brokenness. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right, can we give Carolyn a big round of applause? Thank you so much. This was such a hard topic, but you just delivered it so beautifully, so I really appreciate you. You do have some response questions on your tables with your handouts. They're at the end of your handout, so we'll take a little bit of time for that, and then we'll transition into some prayer time here in about 8 minutes.